Welcome to the I Entrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the I Entrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show today. I am so excited that you're here with us on another Thursday. We are here Arizona time from 2:30 to 3:30. Yes, we are the Mavericks, and I like to remind everyone of that each and every show that we have. Right now, we are in PDT. We're on California time frame. The other 6 months or so of the year, we're on Mountain Standard or time or something like that. Quite frankly, hey, this is the Grand Canyon State. Do we really care? I'm not sure we do. That's why we're the Mavericks who have our own time zone, which is Arizona time. I am really excited to talk about our book, The Art of Connection 2. The Art of Connection 2 is 365 days of inspirational quotes by entrepreneurs, business owners, and influencers. We qualified both books in the series with #1 international best-selling status. I mean, #1, not in the top 100, not in the top 10, but #1 in 27 different categories. And, for me, it's a heart-centered book. It's all about the entrepreneur. It's all about overcoming the odds. In this third book, it's all about transformation, which we have coming up as well. But in this inspirational book, we have, over 250 authors that give their heart to you, the entrepreneur, support, inspiration, and hope. We've lived through 2 years of just a bunch of craziness with COVID, social unrest, a changing of the new to the new, and all these different normals and all these different pivots, but quite frankly, it all goes back to one thing. Do we have the human spirit to overcome? Do we have the human spirit to be resilient? Do we have the human spirit to serve each other again, in the way that our gifts, our purpose, are intended for? So I just, again, want to thank all our authors. You can take a look at this book, a little sneak preview, if you go to mybook.to/Art of Connection 2, or dose, or do, or however that works for you. I just know it is 1, 2. And, and please, if you want any information about that, please contact me. As I said just a little bit ago, our third book in the series is coming out. And what's so cool about this third book is the first 2 books have been in the Library of Congress. We have established this as a series, a legacy series. And so each and every book that comes out in this series will be in the Library of Congress. I'm very proud of that. I've had a lot of authors come to me and say, you know what, that's been something that they wanted to be, not just a best-selling author, not just someone who's creating an awareness for who they are and what they offer, but to be a published author is for some, for some entrepreneurs, it's kind of like either a game changer or it's a life list, something that they can check off. But, please, take a look at what we're offering at 365 days of transformational quotes. We do have an early bird offer for those authors, those entrepreneur authors who want to contribute a page in the book. It's regularly $550. It's only $197. If you just want to see what the community is like, I talk about there's so many sharks in the world, and then other people are goldfish. I'm looking for the dolphins, the somewhere in between, because everyone deserves a place to go so they can grow. And speaking of growing, oh my goodness, you can go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net. You can find our chapter meetings both online and in person. You can get to our academy classes, our summits, and so much more. And, I quite frankly, I don't know how we do it. That's why I married our lovely CEO and my wife, Sean Jones, because we put on over 1,000 meetings and events each year, and someone has to keep up with it. And thank goodness it's not me, because it'd probably look like, a bunch of paperwork in a shoebox in our closet. Also, if you want to love us, please love us. Go to facebook.com/iEntrepreneur Radio. Subscribe to our magazine. We have now over 40,000 subscribers. So if you're looking to be found, to be seen, to have a longer shelf life of visibility, contact me about being in our iEntrepreneur Network magazine. So, well, with no further ado, I am going to bring our star of the hour onto the show today. And I am so excited to have Erin with us today. Erin with Beneath the Brave. How are you, Erin?
Hello, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am doing wonderful as well. And I love, being able to get on radio. I love to be able to speak in front of people. I love to be able to get goosebumps, on my skin. And you're one of those people. I remember I got to talk to you one time, and then all of a sudden I looked at my schedule and I saw that you, Erin, were coming on, and I thought, you know what? Perfect. It was like in my mind, I wanted to manifest that, and all of a sudden I didn't have to do anything. You appeared like the wizard. Did you know that?
The wizard that I am. Yes,
The
yes.
wizard that you are. And I was just like, okay, I'm so excited about that because you and I, we have, I believe, this collective dream, to lead a new awareness, to pioneer a new discovery, to lead people, to their gifts. And for some of us, we get stopped, whether it's externally, and a lot of that happens, and sometimes it's internally. And what I love about you being here today is we get to talk about, some of those internal factors that keep us from really sharing our gifts from the world. And that's why I'm glad that you're here today. But what I want to say is Erin is a nationally recognized speaker. She offers cutting edge training, one-on-one coaching, and she also offers summits of herself. So please, if you're looking to grow your own awareness, please contact myself or Erin. And Erin, I'll give you some time to talk a little bit more about your gifts a little bit later in the show. But before we get on to the Erin of today, okay, I always like this, especially in our 1 hour format. I always want to know everyone starts somewhere. And so much of the time, I feel like, as entrepreneurs or business owners, we're always looking for the results. We're always looking for the results. We're always looking for, what is at the other end, but for me, quite frankly, what really makes things real for me is knowing where a person starts. Because if we know where a person starts, maybe that they'll inspire us to get up and create some actions so we can also get to our life and our results. And what I really want to ask you is, I have this theory, I'm like, a person's made of three things: nature, nurture, and your noodle. And so nature is kind of like the gifts that you're born with and your purpose. Your noodle is like the mind, which can, in heart, which can blow out any direction that you truly want to desire. But then there's the nurture. It's like, where you grew up and what was your family like, and your siblings, and maybe some early education. And I would love to start with that. I'd love to start like maybe on a journey of like at least the first few years of your life. And what was that like growing up in Erin's world?
Well, I was very blessed in that Erin's world was a very loving, safe, kind, fun place to grow up. I am an Arizona local native. I actually grew up in Flagstaff. So when people hear I'm from Arizona, they think desert in Phoenix, where I live now. But no, I grew up with pine trees and sprinklers and sledding and slip and slide in the front yard. So my family is incredible, and they very much have been a big part of this journey. And if you would have asked me as a child what the future would look like, I would never imagine I would be, openly speaking about mental health and doing the work that I'm doing today. So I'm really thankful for the space that I was provided to be young and goofy and creative. I have two incredible parents who have been married, gosh, almost 47 years now.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, an older brother in the house, 2 years older, my brother Adam, who I, to this day continue to try and bully and pick on. He was a much kinder soul than I was as a child. but my home life and my environment were just incredible.
And that's what's so interesting, because so much of the time, myself included, I went to the United States Marine Corps. I did a couple of church missions. I was honored to be able to serve at the San Diego Rescue Mission for 3.5 years. And really many of the people that came there, there was almost like two groups. There's probably a third group, but the two that I saw most were they came from broken homes or they came from broken lives. And broken homes means they didn't have that nurture, they didn't have that solid parent structure, or the broken lives where a lot of them came from a medical like PTSD situation, or the military vets that I served there. And there was a lot of people to serve, but a lot of times, we look at people like, oh, you came from a good neighborhood, or your parents made a lot of money, they've been married 470 years. And it's like, but we don't think that sometimes when you come from what people ideally look at as that perfect environment, that there can be situations that may not be what you think you see, right? And I
Right.
think that that's your case a little bit, isn't it?
It is. It is. And, unfortunately, having a good, loving home, I was not exempt from mental health issues. I wasn't exempt from pain and grief and loss and crisis. And in reality, I think that's what makes life beautiful and tough. And that's where you build resilience. And so I'm blessed to have that support and structure, because it allowed me to have some tools already in my tool belt before the crap of life really happened. So I had a giddy up in that way, but
Yeah.
to find my kind of my place early on because of what you said. You look at my life growing up and you think, you have so much. You were
Hmm.
loved and it was safe and all of those things. And because of that, it was difficult for me to be really honest and open about what I was feeling, because I had shame and this kind of internalized stigma that, like, well, maybe it's not that bad, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, and that's what I mean. I mean, it's like, I mean, going deeper there, because this is sometimes what I feel is really hard. It's, I have a saying in business that people don't buy what they hear, they buy what they see. But
Yeah.
but but here's the thing, with mental illness, and this is what makes it deep, and I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking to you about this, is when they see someone coming from that perfect environment, and when they see someone who has a physical beauty, and they have a youth, and they're getting to do the right things, but inside, life is in chaos. The mind is ping-ponging around, the emotions are going up and down, the lens that you look through is far different. The kids around you, you actually, I think sometimes it's even harder because people don't take that 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 chaos, that inability to feel stable or desired or wanted or belong, etc. Seriously. So when you were a kid, and other kids, you're looking at them and they're looking at you, and you're seeing life differently. How did that make you feel?
Right. I mean, Robert, I just want to jump through this screen and hug you.
Oh,
I
no.
think you stated it beautifully. I really do believe for kiddos, for teens, for adults alike, that when you are not visibly in crisis on the outside, sometimes it's difficult to really be heard or seen or validated. And that, I think, is an incredible barrier for people not only reaching out to get help, but also acknowledging that what they're experiencing is real. And
Mhm.
so I didn't experience really any mental health challenges until I was in my teens. And that it kind of appeared as anxiety. We didn't call it that, of course. It was just Erin gets nervous, Erin gets overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And then I had my first manic episode in high school. I literally was released from a psychiatric hospital on suicide watch and started my senior year of high school 4 days later. And it was humiliating because I
Mhm.
had a reputation to uphold. And I had no clue how to navigate the rumors that were not only gut wrenching, but I had to battle this. Well, that was normal, Erin. And she looked and acted this way, and now there's this broken Erin, and I was almost grieving the loss of the Erin that I knew. And there weren't positive, healthy, recovery-based conversations about mental health at that point. And so I really much struggled in silence with the support of my family, but I wanted to keep up with the Joneses. So I call it hiding behind the smile. And I always tell people, don't overlook the ones in your life who are standing tall, who are smiling, who are overachieving, they're go-getters. Underneath that sometimes is a very, very lonely person. It's important to acknowledge that.
Well, and that's what's so crazy, because in many ways you don't wear lonely the same way you wear clothing, and I think that's so tough. And and here are the other things that I know too, Erin, is and we could even take it all the way to being an entrepreneur. When you go through this, especially when you're young, you stuff, you stuff, you stuff, you stuff. And I call it the theory of velcro. Things keep clamping onto you, and you clamp onto you, and then all of a sudden, people don't take you seriously in your cries for helps, and they start off small, and so then all of a sudden this debt load comes heavier and heavier and heavier. And later in life, for many people, it comes through self-defeating thoughts. It comes through, I should do things, but I'm not doing things. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to believe. But with you, I mean, we're kind of like taking it even to a deeper level, because it's not just believing about, oh, am I going to be a successful business person? Heck, it's sometimes just believing you're going to be a person at all, isn't it?
Yes. There's this almost identity crisis. And when I got into the nonprofit social work field 14 years ago, it was such a gift in a way, because I was able to experience alongside the walk of people who had been through trauma, who had been through domestic and sexual violence, who struggled with their mental health conditions. And you get to feel and witness the resilience of humans.
Yeah.
And it really helped me through my journey to kind of, at one point set aside and go, am I really Erin? Am I really worthy of love?
Yeah.
Am I the person that I grew up being, that I still want to be? Or am I always going to carry this label on my forehead, which I believe now I very much put that there because of my insecurity and my lack of worth and fear of how is anybody ever going to hire me? What if they find out I have a mental illness? There goes my credibility. What about relationships? I mean, who's going to date me? Who's going to love me? Am I a liability to that person? And so kind of exploring, who am I, and how do I show up to this world, and how do I stand on 2 feet bravely, all while just kind of going, what the hell? If you don't like it, I've worked through to love and value the person that I am today.
Well, oh my goodness, I love that you said that, because the first step in anything is showing up. I say that again and again. It's showing up to this world, but what happens is sometimes just showing up, is like a gift, or it is everything that you can do with your own personal human spirit, isn't it? Because showing up for some, it may be easy for them, but showing up for others, they have to get past a few things, don't they?
Yes. I remind myself and folks that I work with today to think about, how are you showing up bravely and boldly in your life? And bravely and boldly in your life could be making the decision to get out of bed and putting one foot on the floor. It could be picking up the phone to call a loved one. Our response to showing up for people when they're living with a mental health condition is so different than somebody who is in a hospital who just had surgery, somebody with a broken leg. I mean, I wished at the time that I could have been pushed around in a wheelchair so that the pain and frustration and fear I had on the inside could be exhibited on the outside. And not that those physical conditions aren't important and aren't difficult, but we get casseroles at the house. I didn't get a bunch of thank you cards, and hey, how can I help? It was like, call me if you need me, which of course I never did. That ask is so hard.
And you know, and that is the epiphany point that others need to see, because here's the thing: when the pain is so real, when you're at your darkest moments, right? You know, and it's like everyone sees me at perfect. Some people actually resort to physically harming themselves so others can see them in how their real reality looks like. Am I right in that, Erin?
Absolutely. It's interesting that you brought that up. I think it validates a lot of the hidden pain. And I'm only speaking from my experience, but I felt even, as an adult, this isn't just as a teenager, as I've grown as a human, sometimes I had felt like I'm not deserving of expressing my pain or frustration or what it's like living with bipolar disorder and navigating life,
Mhm.
because I have had successes and I, for the most part, look like I've got it together. And for many years, I would self-injure. And ironically, nobody in my life knew that I was cutting myself and burning myself until I wrote about it in my book. That's how my
That-
parents found out. That's how my family found out. And just as you said, that was the only way that I could even express the turmoil that I felt on the inside. And it was my relief. I didn't have, the coping skills that worked for other things in my life weren't
right.
that was not working for me at the time. And so I think that's something that we really have to pay attention to. And that was a big out for me at the time.
Yeah, and it's like I always think about, physical, because I've been an athlete in my life, and there's good pain and there's bad pain. The good pain means you're breaking through barriers and you're pushing your limits, and the bad pain means you just got to stop and heal. And it's the same way of mental health. Yeah, there is pushing yourself, and there's a good pain on, okay, so now I'm walking across that stage and I'm overcoming fear because I'm within 2,000, I'm in front of 2,000 people. But my goodness, that is a different pain than waking up that morning and say, today I'm not going to take that cigarette and burn my skin.
Right.
And that's what I know. And it's like, am I maximizing the extremes? Absolutely. Because even the very successful people, like what you've said, they show up every day with a suit on,
Mhm.
but when they
That's our
take the
armor.
suit off,
Our
yeah, it's their armor. You know
Yes.
what? But when you but and so they're bulletproof from the outside, but on
Yes.
the inside, what shows?
Yeah.
The scars and the pain. I
Right.
mean, my goodness, our segments go by so quick. I'm going to play a short little, let me, Erin, I'm going to have your information going across here. I'm with Erin Callinan, author, speaker, and creative, not just founder, but creative, the pioneering spirit, that is behind Beneath the Brave. You can find out more about her by going to www.beneaththebrave.com. Erin, you know, I love your background is fascinating. I feel like we should have a whole hour just for your background, you know. But I'm going to come back and let's have our next segment, and let's talk about a little bit about your professional life when we come back. Does that sound awesome?
Sounds great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
Hi, everyone. I am with Erin Callinan, Beneath the Brave. She is an amazing rock star who puts her heart out there, who puts her mind out, who puts her skill set out there to help others, both old and young, both entrepreneurs and people that are working in corporation. It's her mission to share and pioneer the spirit of having everyone, be accepted and having everyone grow, because some of us have torments on the outside, but some of us live with our own created torments on the inside. And she is a champion to get person to live not just beautifully in the way that we look and the feel and the way we go, but beautifully from the way that we can be. And that's what I love about Erin. She's an amazing rock star. Erin, you have worked, for, quite a few amazing different companies. I have here, you've worked for the Center for Creative Change. You worked for Northland Family Help Center. And you've also worked for Arizona Coalition to End Sexual Abuse and Domestic Violence. I mean, to me, in many ways, these are not for the faint of heart. These are not for someone who is not committed to us, because I know one thing about working in these environments. You cannot help but be emotionally, mentally, and spiritually drained at times by working in those environments. Why did you choose to work with these particular companies?
As cliche as it may sound, it sort of chose me. I
Wow.
always worked with people while I was growing up and volunteering. I am just a sort of a natural empath, which is this beautiful curse many times in this field. And once I graduated from University of Arizona, I wanted to work with kiddos. My undergrad is in elementary education. And I went to apply at a domestic violence shelter knowing nothing about the topic. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me, in that I had this door open where I got to sort of see and walk along others as they navigated truly horrific situations. So it was one of the most inspiring entrances into the social work field. It also kicked me on my butt, because I came home crying every day of, how do you separate yourself from this? And so I think it served as an opportunity for me to challenge myself. I felt much safer working with victims and survivors of violence than I did working in mental health. So I spent about 8 years in that field before I moved to mental health, because I didn't know if I could do it. Who would listen to me? I'm living with bipolar disorder, right? But early,
Yeah.
I had to learn those boundaries, and that how do you show up for people and do so in an empathetic, non-judgmental, kind, safe way, but also recognizing that you do them no favors, or yourself, if you take on their crisis as your own. I heard this saying and I thought it was beautiful. We say you can't pour from an empty cup. Realistically, you should fill your cup up so high that you are full, and the overflow that falls on your saucer,
Yeah.
that's the piece that you should give the world. So it's taken some years, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I have been so extremely motivated and inspired and found incredible mentors along the way.
And I was going to ask you about, I am sure you've had amazing influences in your life, by going through these particular organizations and all the people that you meet. And and I love what you say about the cup. I'm like, if your cup starts to get filled, get another cup. I mean, like, it's just that easy. I mean, buy the 6-pack, I mean, keep going, because like when I was a junior, right? I mean, when I was a junior youth pastor, I mean, I used to tell the kids this all the time, because I worked with kids, and I used to tell them, I said, you know what, make your cup of love something that you can never fill up. And if you think you are, I used to tell the kiddos, just grab another cup, because the world needs more of that, and it can be unlimited if you choose to produce it. And that's what I used to tell those little kids. And I used to make crazy animal sounds for them when we did Noah's Ark. But at any rate, I mean,
it's a practice, right? It's a practice.
It is a practice. It is, and see, those are the other things, because when we think of when we think of abuse, so much of the time in recent years, we've really, in a way, concentrated on mental abuse, much more than we used to.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that we can't forget is there's still physical abuse happening out there, you know, and sometimes when I think and I tell that to people, they're like, there is, and I'm like, yeah, it's just the world's not reporting it anymore. It did not go away, everyone. It doesn't stop between here, you know,
No.
and that physical abuse is also is real is the emotional and the mental abuse that happens, you know, within families or between friends or, you know, spouses, etc. You know, but you know, in certain ways it's changed over the years. In certain ways it's stayed the same, hasn't it, Erin? But you know, my question for you is this. It's like, you know, sometimes it's like we're so afraid, you know, that our best coping mechanism is hurting others, isn't it?
Sure. You know, it's interesting because, like you said, abuse is not something that just began. It's not something that, you know, it's been hidden away for so long, similar to how mental health conversations are hidden away. And when we look at some of the risk factors for developing a mental health condition, adverse childhood experiences, abuse, violence, all of those things can be risk factors. And so we need to pay attention to what we carry with us as coping strategies. Do we know how to communicate with each other? Do we know how to express ourselves and identify when we're in surroundings with friends, family, relationships? How emotionally safe do we feel? Are we free to express what it is we want, what it is we need? Because, you know, I think about when people get uncomfortable in talking about mental health, or they're worried about somebody who might be suicidal, the best thing we can do is ask. If we
Yeah.
want a direct answer, we want to ask the direct question. Are you feeling suicidal? How can I support you in your mental health journey? What do you think would be helpful? How can I show up for you? Oftentimes, they're the expert in their life. If we shut our mouths, sit back and listen, many times people who are hurting will tell us what they need.
You know, and yeah, you know, and it's so funny because, you know, I hear a lot of stories where people are actually telling other people what they need for years, and it's like even the closest people in their lives, they don't hear them. I mean, you've probably seen that as well, haven't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, a story comes to mind that my family and I laugh about is, you know, when somebody is in a place of pain, and we'll say for mental health, whether they're navigating depression or anxiety, or they have a recent diagnosis, which has pros and cons, being told what to do or what is needed or what they, you know, should, could, must, those are words that are never
Oh,
helpful.
oh
Right?
shit.
They're
Oh yeah,
the worst.
terrible.
They are just the worst. And you know, when you're trying to support someone, sometimes you have to sort of find your own language to meet them where they're at. And in my family, we found all kinds of language that sort of normalized conversations about mental health. And I used to get, as a teenager, when I was newly taking medication, which I've taken after 2 hospital visits and self-harm and eating disorder, you better believe I take my medication every day. It is really a lifesaver for me. But early on, I
You
was
know,
very uncomfortable talking about meds.
you know, you know, you know, somehow you brought something, you know, out, you know, that I wasn't really thinking about, but you touched me on this, you know, and one of the things is, you know, when we talk about mental health, so much of the time it really is about like, oh, you know, oh, I'm bipolar, or oh, I have DMDD, or I have you know, I'm ODD, and there's all these diagnoses. I mean, you know, and you talked about labeling earlier and earlier, but you know, here's the other thing. I think I tell people it's important to understand a little bit more about mental health, because by understanding our mental health, it's almost like a scorecard. All of a sudden, even if you don't have those labels, you can start understanding other things, other triggers that
Right.
create certain situations. And well, that's why I shoot for the hip, or that's why I go off the handle, or that's why I do the things I do. You know,
Yeah.
understanding mental health isn't just for people who are mentally challenged. I don't even know
No.
what the right word is. I don't even want to say it, but or have mental illness. It
Right.
really is for everyone, because it actually helps us get to a better place, you know, because then we're starting to understand a sense of ourselves better. Would you agree
Right.
with that?
Absolutely. That education piece is so important. And at the end of the day, I'm a believer of just strip the label away, strip the diagnosis away. How do we support each other? And what is it that you need? And as you develop that conversation in that language that makes it feel safe and even empowering to talk about what you need, you can find all kinds of really neat ways to thrive, whether it's going to therapy, taking medication. We learned that rather than my parents asking, did you take your meds today? Because those fears, stigma, messages would come in of, why? What's wrong? Am I being weird? Did something happen? Am I acting depressed? And I would get very defensive. And so we shifted the conversation. And one day my dad just said, hey, Erin, did you feed the dog today? And for whatever reason, it was like father-daughter zone. I knew that he was asking if I had taken my meds that day. And I said, yep. And that became our language moving forward. And so for folks to be comfortable and confident and informed about how to talk to about mental health to anybody is so important, because if we've got 1 out of 5 people out there living with a diagnosed mental health condition, chances are it's you or someone in your life that you know. So if we have the language to identify signs and symptoms that somebody might be struggling, and then intervene, act, get them connected with resources and supports, show up for them just as you would if they were navigating a physical health condition.
And you bring something else, changing the patterning of languages, creating, different interruptions, this is really kind of like what it's about. And I have people and they come to me and they're like complaining, and they're like, well, why do I have to do all this? And it's like, well, you know what? You don't have to, but isn't it about, I mean, you don't, no one's forcing you. You don't have to, but isn't it, right. Yeah. But so I tell them, I this is what I tell them, Erin. I'm like, isn't success about creating better ways?
Yes.
And if you're saying you want to be successful, and you're saying you want to inspire other people, and you want to give them support, you want to give them hope, you want to do these things, isn't a part of that, speaking in the language that works for both people, and I think sometimes, gosh, in our environment, sometimes we get so myopic and so self-centered in our own personal development. We actually don't extend personal development to everyone we touch.
Certainly.
I mean, don't you? And you hear, sometimes you hear these, so-called self-help gurus, and helping yourself doesn't mean at the expense of others. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to really, look at. And like I said, I just wanted to get your take on that. When you hear these, it's like, well, I'm going to help you get 10 times this. And come on, Bob, and I'm going to get you to, be that other person. And, and it's like, but just give me your 25 grand and, you'll never see me again. But, it's like, oh my goodness, what does it make you cringe, or it just makes you say, you know what? I cringe right now, but I have more people to help. How does that make you feel when you hear these things out there?
It's a good question. I think I get peeved when people's lived experience gets overlooked, as if they, you need letters behind your name, and you need to, run up the corporate ladder, and you need all of these accolades and peer journals and research. Like, they've lived it. They've been through it, whether it's trauma or divorce, grief, substance use, whatever that is. And oftentimes when you can just sit back and meet someone where they're at, I think that's the most valuable. I think that's where you learn the language of humanity and the language of resilience. And so if you were to look at my bookshelf, I have like 900 self-help books. And many of them are very great. But I don't think that gives you a ticket into you then being a good, authentic, real, helpful person out into the world. That internal work is so important, but that doesn't necessarily hold you accountable for how you engage with other people in your life.
Oh my God, and I say this all the time, I'm like, they're like, I'm trying to be authentic. And I said, but you're an authentic asshole. That doesn't mean I want to do business with you. You can be authentic. That doesn't always mean that it's all that great. Maybe
No,
you need to,
yeah.
and,
That doesn't
and,
mean
and,
you
and
just say whatever the hell you want at the expense of.
yes, I mean, totally agreed.
Yeah,
It's like you said, it doesn't give you the ticket to not come at the place with others. And here's something else that I've understood in my life with mental health, and I can't believe we're already coming up to another break. But this is just good stuff. And when I talk to people, I always say I come to them at their certain space, and I always tell them, also remember that the process changes people. And even if you and I come to us at the same space right now on April 28th, 2022, you know what? We have moved a year from now when it's April 28th, 2023. And I always say, be wary of placing a number on someone, because you know what? People change, and it matters that we actually resonate with that change when we meet again. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. And I think stability and, in some ways that correlates to stagnancy. In
Hmm.
mental health, there is a lot of messaging around recovery and education
Hmm.
and wellness, and here's strategies and self-care tips that you can use. At the end of the day, I believe there's also a sense of accountability and taking action and moving forward and changing and growing and recognizing and celebrating those
And
changes.
recognizing, and that, and that's the love. That is one of my favorite words. We don't use it enough. And I know I'm jumping in here, and I have got to jump in here, but
Great.
it's like my son has said. He's like, Dad, I've gone to my therapist. I've changed all these ways, but the kids around me, they're not letting me escape it. I'm not the same person. And that's what I mean. The training isn't just for the person, who needs to get through it. I mean, there are, like, even me as a dad, or, looking at other people, the training also extends to those that are around us, doesn't it?
Right, right. Well, it's like we all need space to shed those layers of skin of who we were in
Mhm.
positive and otherwise. And it's
Yeah.
okay to grow. It's good to grow, not only because you endure change, which means you've accomplished something, you've overcome pain, loss, whatever that may be. And the more things that change in our life typically build resilience. And I end up just doing spring cleaning in my life. So as those layers of skin shed in various stages of my life, if you're not on board, like, I wish you well. But it's like
Yeah.
in my group, whether friends, colleagues, mentors, I hold my time and space very valuable. And if you're not on board with the changes, like, there, find another book to read, because this one's just not for you.
I mean, yeah, I mean, how dare you say it's good to grow? I mean, how dare you say that? I mean,
Right,
what?
right. I mean, comfort and stability are important, but like I said, I think when it leads to a place of stagnancy, where if we
Mhm.
want to just show up as authentic, whether we're business owners, entrepreneurs, you're a teacher, you're a social worker, first responder, you're the only one in control of your life. You can blame
Yeah.
a lot of things, and not that those things aren't real and painful, but at the end of the day, don't let them weigh you down so that you no longer grow. I think that's such a
Oh,
dead zone.
totally agree. Everyone, I am here with Erin Callinan. She is the creative behind well, she is the creative behind Beneath the Brave. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a trainer. She is one of the things we haven't really talked about is, an advocate and recoverer, with bipolar. And I kind of want to talk about that in our next segment. Erin, these segments just go way too fast with you. I'm so excited that you're on the show. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we're going to talk about what's going on now in your professional life. And I'm excited to get to that next segment. Aren't you?
I am. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now I got to find my little, there we go. There's my.
Network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
Oh my goodness, the segments are going way too fast today. I am here with Erin Callinan. She is the creative behind Beneath the Brave. Again, a recognized international speaker. She has cutting edge technologies, and she really helps the vibration for entrepreneurs, parents, children, corporations, wherever there's a need for mental health and raising that vibration, she is there to serve. And I'm really excited that she's on the show today. And Erin, we talked a lot about your personal background, your professional background, and some of the places you've worked. The last segment went by so quickly. I didn't even, and we talk about the alphabet behind the name, but one of the things, but I also do think it's important, if it's a part of your arena of expertise, and you have a couple of designations here that I'm not necessarily familiar with, and I did want to bring them out because I think we need to define them a little bit so people can give you the respect that you should be accorded. And one of those is you're a nationally certified adult mental health first aid instructor. That's one, and the other one I have is you hold a SHRM workplace mental health ally certificate, and so those are a couple of things I'm not familiar with, and I wanted you to go through that a little bit, and what does that mean for you, and how should that resonate with others? Because I think that like I said, I really want to hold you with due respect by having these certifications.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The mental health first aid training is something that I'm so honored to be, nationally certified as an instructor, because it's a course that I took many years ago, and it's a public education training course that is for anybody in the community. If you care about mental health issues, you should take the course. And it's an opportunity for folks to learn how to recognize early or worsening signs and symptoms for somebody who might be struggling with their mental health. And then they learn an action plan. So how do they approach that person and listen non-judgmentally, provide some reassurance, hope from a recovery lens, and then get them connected to supports and services. So to be able to be that conduit, that information is something that every person needs. Just like people go and get CPR first aid certified, you're more likely to run into somebody who needs support with their mental health. So it's an important course for everybody to take.
Well, I mean, that's amazing, and why I wanted to bring out there is just bringing an awareness to it, Erin, because I know a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of certifications through being a networking founder and whatnot, but this is one I really wanted to highlight because I think more people do need to know that it exists and that it's actually within their reach. I think that that's the other thing that's very, very important. But you also have this workplace mental health ally certificate. What is that?
Yeah, a great question. So I became interested in mental health in the workplace once I entered the workplace, and very much lived in a place of secrecy of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if they find out I'm living with a mental illness? And it's very much of like, have you been committed and, convicted of a felony on your job application? And so I was fortunate in that I had some clinical supervisor, other team members who were very, very supportive. And I recognized that there's a lot of risk in disclosing mental health in the workplace. And many times, if you're struggling with your mental health, that has an impact on missing work, being present when you're actually at work, how well you do your job, how you show up. And so I ended up getting a certification and building and creating a mental health in the workplace program. So my training program is called Leading from the Top. So no matter where you are, ultimately from the top, typically you are pivotal in making mental health of your employees your responsibility, because it impacts the bottom line. And people, unfortunately, don't just leave their mental health at the door. So if they're struggling, it's important that employers not only recognize the impact on the bottom line when they don't address employees' mental health, but they need to prioritize that and create healthy cultures so that if an employee is struggling, they can reach out for help. Supervisors are trained and educated in what to look for, how do you recreate, or how do you create a recovery plan at work instead of come into my office, you're in trouble, I'm signing you up, you're on probation, sign here. It's really about the why and the what, while also being inclusive of ethical and legal practices.
Well, and I think that also it also comes back to like balancing. And what I mean by that is, you know, if someone is struggling, that doesn't mean that struggle is permanent.
No,
It can become permanent, but with proper training, proper recognizing, you can take some, because you could have, one of the best employees in your office, and when they struggle, they're not what you would call your best. But if you can recognize what's going on, you can get in there and actually redirect to the point where they become the best again. Because you know I think this is what people sometimes don't understand all the time. It's like, it's almost like high blood pressure. Yeah, you might be a candidate having high blood pressure and you can't do certain things, or you need to recognize certain things, but that doesn't mean you're living in high blood pressure at all times.
no,
it, you know
it's
and
early intervention. That's important.
right, and so I think it's the person who has it, who needs to notice, and it's being in a enlightened environment, an enlightened workplace, where you understand, that you aren't all individuals working together, because there's no synergy in that. You're all, really all working together to create a cohesive energy, and part of that is just recognizing those struggles and helping people overcome them, right?
Right. Yeah, and being informed that people should have access to employee assistance programs, and companies
Hmm.
need to know what benefits are available to their employees, whether that's through EAP programs, insurance. There's a lot of barriers to access. And so sometimes there's this stereotype of X individual, they don't want help, they're not getting help.
Right.
Let's identify some of the barriers that they may be facing in reaching out for help, whether it's long wait lists, pre-authorizations, lack of finances, cultural barriers. There's so much to it. And so when workplaces create healthy, supportive, empowering cultures, the overall wellness and health of the team just skyrockets. And it makes the place much more enjoyable to work at when you know that you're seen and you're heard, and you don't have to struggle in silence.
Well, I have always said this: if you're having fun and learning, you're going to learn more. If you're having fun and work, you're going to produce more. And I think that is very, spot on. And I think, we as humans, we do need to get back to the point that, we're a part of each other, not apart from each other. And,
Right.
and part of the way to really excel with velocity is it goes back to teamwork. And I love that person who said, teamwork makes the dream work, because it really does.
Does.
It really creates a time and space where, we offer more to the world together than we do apart. And many
Absolutely.
times that's what, I really champion that, and that's why I appreciate what you do. One of your taglines is that you help individuals and companies just to strengthen their mental health. And you know, you know, yeah, you do it in kind of the company dynamic. But what does it look like, when you're working with the individual? Is it through Zoom? Do you do this in person? Do you give them a workload to do? Do you shoot them up with, I'm just kidding. What does it look like when you're working like with individuals, and what type of individuals do you truly like working with?
Great question. So it's a little bit broad.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the individual who is in need of support is in the driver's seat of their life. So I offer coaching services. I have my master's in social work. I don't provide therapy or counseling. What I do offer is support in laying the groundwork and a space for somebody to navigate what are some of the barriers in their lives as they work through a mental health condition. So individually, my clients are individuals living with mental health conditions, diagnosed or not, doesn't matter, and or their families who are looking to support that person. And so I provide support and services in that way through one-on-one coaching or group coaching. And then I also have on-demand master classes. So one of my master classes that is launching on May 3rd in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month is a master class for peers, for anybody with lived experience, to build back up the confidence that they may have lost, to kickstart their mental health and
Hmm.
be the badass that they know they are. We
Yeah.
don't hear as often about recovery stories. We see someone who looks nice and packaged up and we go, oh, they must be fine. I can't talk to them because they won't get it. And so this masterclass, it's an 8-module on-demand course that helps an individual learn how to advocate for themselves, build their confidence, increase their coping skills so that they don't feel like they have to live under the veil and it's all consuming of living with a mental health condition. You can do so.
Yeah.
You can do so successfully when you build the right support systems.
Well, and I'm going to stand up for you for another thing that I think is so important. I'm standing up for you and I'm doing it, for wherever this feeds out to. I think it's very, very important that people understand master of social work. So many times, when I talk with people, they say, oh, is that someone who works in the soup kitchen? And, maybe they volunteered, maybe they do work in the soup kitchen, but, I know firsthand, in Payson, Arizona, when I was living there, I employed an independent contractor who is an MSW, and I kid you not, some of the best work and some of the best recovery for me in my life was working with her. And enlighten people a little bit who are watching this show today what a MSW is, because it's I think much more broad and is much more deep than what most people think. And I kid you not, it was the best. How could I say, counseling, coaching, consulting, affirmation, empowerment that I had in my life. And I had, to make a long story short, I had come through a tragic, case of cancer, and I went through a divorce, and I was really in that dark space, Erin. And, she just had the right training and just the right feel and works and life experiences that really took me through. And I have everything to owe her, so, kind of talk about, what does it look like and what does it mean to have an MSW?
That's so beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that. I love hearing stories like that. And that's part of what I love about being in social work and pursuing my master's. It's a really broad field in the way that I have autonomy to just show up as an empathetic, concerned, supportive human to help another human. And we approach things from a biological perspective, from a psychological perspective, and a social perspective, recognizing that we all come with a lot of stuff, right? We have different identities, we have different experiences. And so the field of social work is very fluid in meeting someone where they're at and all that encompasses, all the areas of their life that might need support. And if I'm not the appropriate person, then it's about connecting you to resources for anyone who has that specialty. And part of my drive for pursuing and getting my master's was actually, I had a college professor one time. I was struggling in college at one point and changing medications. I had lost a friend to suicide, was going through a breakup. And so I wasn't doing super great. And the professor went on to tell me that people with bipolar disorder aren't meant for college. And I was like, you are good. I'm going to remember this. Like, you are never going to live this down. And I ended up graduating, but that always stuck with me. And it really pushed me away actually from the education system. Several years went by and I was, training and doing public speaking in the community. And I had a gentleman who had a doctorate, a professor, come up to me and said, where did you get your doctorate from? You're well-spoken. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, nothing. I have an undergrad that I don't use at all. And he really encouraged me that I was deserving of pursuing, my education in that way. And so I found a field that I felt really encompassed all of who I was, and took 3 years studying my pants off and struggling with mental health along the way. And I talk about people behind the smile. I am such a pain in the ass when it comes to perfection, and I hold my standards very high. And so that was, an interesting challenge for me as I went through my master's, that there was no reason for me to be diehard about getting a 4.0. But that's my little insecure bipolar voice going, you're not good enough. You can't do it. You're not meant to be here.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, why? Don't fill up that space. Don't fill up that space, right?
Completely.
Pour it out.
Exactly. It's like,
Oh
what
my gosh.
to learn, in that program, and having been surrounded by social workers for 14 years, it's just a field I'm so proud to be a part of.
Well, Erin, I mean, you are such a delight to be on the show today. I look forward to so many more conversations. I look forward to you coming into, our chapter meetings as well. And let's do an INET Connect so people can get to know you more, and personally as well. I have your information scrolling across the screen. Are there other ways that we can find you? Are there any events coming up? Do you, how can people contact you so they can get in the glow stick of Erin?
Yes, absolutely. You can visit my website, beneaththebrave.com. There's lots of goodies in there in terms of the services that I offer, but reach out to me. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, Erin Callinan. You can also find out about some of my upcoming master classes. You can purchase my book, all of those things through the website, and reach out to me personally. I answer emails. So you can contact me directly at Erin@beneaththebrave.com.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's a delight. If you have a few moments to stay after the show, I'd love to just do like an exit interview, you and I. I am such a believer in what you do, and knowing that you have a master's in social work. I mean, for people who are not familiar, with that degree. I mean, it is an amazing degree, and it really does touch upon a lot of life points, and it can help you go from stuck to being unstuck very, very quickly by working with the right person who holds that, in high regards. Again, I hope you're going to have a great weekend. I have your information. Again, everyone, I'm with Erin Callinan, author, speaker, awareness expert, and creative behind Beneath the Brave. Contact her at Erin@beneaththebrave.com. Erin, again, so much. I hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to us talking again.
Absolutely. I do too. Thank you for the opportunity, Robert. You're wonderful.
Thank you. You are as well. You know what? I just want to remind everyone we are at the end of our show, but we meet here every week on that crazy Arizona time. Oh, my glasses went down a little bit. Woo! I'm just hot with passion on this one today. We meet here 2:30 to 3:30 each and every Thursday. And make it a great weekend, everyone. See you next week, and make it a great day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
You've been watching the I Entrepreneur Show, a production of the I Entrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.